Assalamu alaikum. This is Joshua Salam, and you're back on Deen Talk. And we have some statements to read from our survey, and then we have the person, Arifi, I told you about, who kind of helped us with the survey and put it all together. She's going to talk about it. So let's read some of these comments. Actually, you know what? I'm gonna let her go first. I want to hold my information. We save the best for last. No offense,
disrespect.
No disrespect, none whatsoever. We're communicating. All right, but I do want to remind the audience what we said about the other survey at the beginning of the show, that they weren't necessarily Muslim. We don't know how long ago it was, but 75% of the people that responded to that survey between the ages of 18 to 23 said it doesn't matter if we marry somebody outside of the faith. And we thought that was very interesting, and so we called up Arifi and said, hey, can you do a survey for us? And what did you find?
So we surveyed only Muslims, and out of the Muslims we surveyed, unfortunately it was really unbalanced with the genders. It was only 14% male and 86% female. We had 170 respondents, so that was a pretty good number. We asked them about how important they thought faith was, sharing the same faith was in their marriage, and about 88% said that they thought it was very important. 10% said it was somewhat important, and only 2% said it wasn't very important.
Exact opposite of this other survey.
Exact opposite. And one cool thing we found was we calculated Pearson correlations, basically to see which factors go together. And we found that the people who attended mosque and religious functions more often tended to also agree that it was more important to marry someone of the same faith. So definitely that aspect of community and having a community really plays into their opinion on this subject.
Mm-hmm. Or some might say they've been brainwashed. No, I don't. but no, that's very important. And from those people, those 88% that said, it's very important, and 2% not that important, we have some of their comments. We're going to read some of them. Then we're going to open it up for the last 10 minutes that we have, okay? So this person who believes that it's very important, and I think they're one of those regular masjid attendees, I don't know, but it says, Islam states that the man is the head of the household. He is the leader and the teacher. It is his responsibility to guide his family to the right path. If he's a Christian, or even if his deen is weak, what is that teaching your family? Marrying a Muslim husband is crucial. Allah doesn't accept the marriage if the husband is of a different religion, okay? I hope you guys are editing this right so you don't think I'm quoting Joshua Salam on this stuff. All right, I'm reading from a survey. All right, next one. Mixing a religious and a non-religious spouse is like trying to mix two different cultures. Interesting how they say it's as hard as mixing two cultures. And not sharing any significant common interests. That's just too hard. Another one who maybe doesn't think it's as important. I care that my partner is a person of good character. And there are people with good character who aren't religious, and they are very humanistic and spiritual. It's another perspective. All right? And the last one I want to leave you with is this one. I can't raise my kids with someone who doesn't see their father pray. Heavy. Now, if you guys want all this information, you can find it on deen.tv/survey. You'll see the work of Arifi. What do you guys think about some of those stats and those comments?
I think they're pretty impressive.
Impressive? What do you mean?
Impressive because, usually a lot of people who come in this generation who think about interfaith marriages, they don't really look too far ahead. The popular thing is like, we'll figure it out as we go along. Mm-hmm. And one important thing I wanted to mention about communication. Communication is key in every relationship, but a lot of people take communication to mean that they should talk about everything all the time, every time. Mm-hmm. And that sometimes is not healthy for marriages. I think it's really important to agree upon a construct or a way that you will communicate. Sometimes if you want to talk to somebody who is not very verbal and you're always talking to them and wanting to talk about everything, they might almost come off as you're being aggressive or not respecting them, not respecting their faith. And unfortunately, in my practice, I've seen a lot of those conversations and communications escalate, sometimes turn into 911 calls too, which can traumatize the children very much so. So I work a lot with my couples to figure out a way that they can approach topics. Some good hints are to agree upon a time to talk about something. Don't talk for more than 15 minutes. Don't talk about more than 3 topics, because sometimes when you get going, you remember a bunch of other things to get through.
Yeah, we all know how that is. Once you start talking. So I'm seeing some themes that have been kind of connecting here throughout the show. When you talked about, because you're talking about communication now, Zakaria talked about, his organization trying to fund different innovative solutions to problems that are going out there in the society. Beyond Chai has kind of come up and is trying to really connect people. And is there a lot of communication there that happens before people start making the next steps?
Yeah, I mean that's what we do. We try to match people with number of factors, including compatibility, interest. So we spend a lot of time, and effort in trying to make sure that we propose, suitable matches that we felt based on our years of experience that are fit for individuals.
Now, when we talk about going forward, okay, because this is the last segment, so I want to make sure we're talking about that, especially when we're talking about solutions. Okay, now we're trying to go forward. Is it that we need to focus more on getting Muslims and of different males and females to be able to communicate with one another and talk to each other and know each other so that they can get married? Or is it that we need to focus on teaching people who are going to get married just how to communicate no matter what the faith, because you're going to have problems that arise in marriage and people of the same faith can be making those 911 calls. So is the focus as we move forward to get Muslims to marry or to just teach communication skills? If you had to choose, what would be something that you lean to? You took a breath.
I did. Communication skills is super important. It goes back to the respect issue. If you don't respect your partner's communication style, then you're not respecting them. Mm-hmm. It's an important aspect of the way that they live their daily life.
What if their style is very, yelling and hurtful?
Well, then maybe you shouldn't be with them.
Now.
I'm sorry. I'm not the therapist here. I don't have to give
I threw a
advice.
curveball at it. Yeah. You're right, respect, but
Because that respect has to be a two-way street,
Mm-hmm.
and if it's yelling and hurtful, then they're not respecting your needs.
Sure. But sometimes that's all that the person knows.
Yeah.
How to do. So sometimes it's just by, again, having this talk, having this platform, having some surveys, is we're bringing up the topic. Now it's in everybody's consciousness. So if you do have a spouse, and I often see that, some people, that's what lead to divorces, where he's always yelling at me, oh, well, why don't you leave him? That's so disrespectful. But get to the issue first. Mm-hmm. I have a little conversation. Whenever we talk about things, I feel that you're always yelling or screaming. What's that coming from? Am I saying something? You could be saying some things that are triggering them to go ahead and do that. Now, I'm not making excuses for anybody's behavior. It's not good to act like that at all. But sometimes we need to get to the root of the behavior, the problem with the behavior. Say you have a 2-year-old that's tantruming. Mm-hmm. You don't say, oh my gosh, you're tantruming, that's it, go to your room. First, you go through the list. Is he hungry? Is he sleepy?
Is he just a bad kid?
Is it noisy? No. Is it what's going on? So you try to calm down the environment and then address the person.
So, man. So I want to talk to my producers. I want another show just about from the female perspective in the marriage of interfaith marriages, because from I think a large portion of the Muslim community that's considered forbidden, right? Mm-hmm. So really I think this conversation is people are probably understanding it really just interfaith marriages in general, which would probably be from the men's perspective, right? So when you're just talking about interfaith marriages, what are the social pressures that we need to look for or be aware of as we're moving down the line? I mean, when you come into the masjid with a Christian wife or a Jewish wife, or if somebody believes you can marry outside the people of the book, see, I'm trying not to get into all of that. But is there any pressure in the community? Are Muslim sisters like, all these Muslim sisters, and you go, what? Do we have to be addressing that as we're moving forward? What are these? I want to know, what's something that when you talk about solutions, what are these social pressures that we're going to have to deal with?
Yeah, and if I may, I'd like to go back to your earlier point about, what is it that we're trying to discuss here, right? Mm-hmm. Because I think, when it comes to interfaith marriage, we embrace America being the melting pot, mm-hmm. right? But at the same time, we as Muslims have the responsibility to preserve Islam in America, mm-hmm. right? So we have to.
And that's a difficult balance sometimes.
It is a difficult balance, and you have to understand that wholeheartedly. And that requires coming up with solutions, mm-hmm. right? Coming up with the solutions, having discussions with the parents early on, working with the masajid organizations to create platforms, to create social projects for kids to get to know each other in a mm-hmm. supervised, right? Mm-hmm. In a supervised manner, so we don't create issues for ourselves, right? A lot of what we're seeing is because of some of the issues that we've self-created, self-inflicted. So I think that's a very important.
Now, there's an assumption under there, I think, you can correct me if I'm wrong, that the problem could be interfaith marriages. I don't know if necessarily everybody sees that as a problem, and we said at the beginning of the show, do you see this as a crisis, or do you see this as, oh, Islam's becoming normalized? And if you do see it as a problem that, you know, Muslims are marrying outside of the faith, then you would talk about these solutions. Does everybody agree that it's kind of a problem that Muslims are marrying outside of the faith?
I wouldn't say it's a problem. I would say it's, I mean, I don't know if we can use the word an epidemic. It's something that we're seeing greater and greater numbers for, and not knowing why it's happening.
Okay, so you would put it like that. It's just happening more. We don't know why. Let's look into it, but it's not necessarily a problem, is what you're saying.
Or it could also be coming more to the forefront, you know, just in this age of communication, we're getting to know more and more about it. Before, a lot of these marriages would be happening in smaller communities, in rural communities, and again, typically in these households, sometimes religion is not the primary focus of the marriage, so we didn't probably know about it. But nowadays we have a lot more interaction, and maybe we need to support interfaith marriages too. The reason why they're coming to light is because those people are coming to the masjid. They still want to connect their children back to Islam. So we're just seeing a trend, so to speak. We need to kind of follow the trend and see where it's coming from, and then see how we can support the trend. We do want people of interfaith marriages to come to the masjid.
Okay.
And the masjid needs to be a welcoming place for anybody who wants to increase their Islamic knowledge and adherence.
Right, and just to go off of that, I think it's an excellent point. I think, you know, we have to address situations that we see with a culturally relevant paradigm, right? I think what we can't be having is folks that have, you know, paradigms that absolutely have no relevance to what is happening, and not just, you know, within the larger culture, American culture, but also don't take into account the factors that are unique. I mean, you have, you know, suburban versus urban. I mean, right? Suburban versus urban, and you have a whole lot of factors there that can facilitate or promote or not these sorts of things. So I think we need to be aware of that. And from my perspective, I think if you're looking at the the integrity of a Muslim American community, right? What is important there, and that's where I think the listening has to happen. If folks are identifying that as a problem, I think then you have to just peel back the layers and ask, you know, why do you think that's a problem, right? How could that be addressed, not just at a family level, right, where therapists, interventions with therapists may be relevant, but also just on a broader level where you have these discussions happening out in the public, providing platforms where it's not just a platform, but also a safe space, right? You can have a platform, right, and say, okay, you know, who has a problem, right? Raise your hand, right?
Step into the ring,
right? So
ding.
it's got to be a safe space for that to happen as well.
Now, did you want to say something before I chime in? Because I always got something to say that's kind of a problem. But all right.
Do you want us to go back to the survey, or do you want?
No, not necessarily.
Now, I remember there was one point that you did bring up about the educational level too. Sometimes in marriages and culturally what people like. So a lot of culture kind of bleeds in. Cultural kind of supersedes religion sometimes. You
Right.
want to talk a little bit
Right.
about
Yeah.
that?
No, I was just sharing an anecdote recently, and I'm not sure who's watching this or not. So
just got 1 minute left.
So it's essentially a family that the community believes is, you know, quote unquote religious, whatever that means, whose the father of the daughter keeps on turning away proposals because the folks, suitors that are coming are not of the same educational attainment as the daughter who's pursuing a doctorate degree, right? So, but they are, you know, overtly religious, quote unquote, right? So, you know.
So you would assume that they would focus on religion more than education.
That would be
but
the
in this
assumption,
situation,
right.
they're
Yeah.
tending to focus on education more than religion.
That's the assumption folks made, right?
I will say this, and maybe, unfortunately, I know there's tears coming. This might be the last comment. But, you know, when we think about one of the statements of the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, was that, you know, when we come to a time where people are rejected in marriage without looking at their character and without looking at if they're a good person, and you reject them for other reasons, that you're going to start to see a lot of fitna in your community and in society. And then so all these things that we're talking about now, as far as you know, interfaith marriages, or needing to go online to get married even, you know, or even to have to go, you know, over here, wait until you're 45 or 50. These are all come, I think, from maybe that first conversation about who do you marry and why. And maybe we'll talk more about that the next time you turn into Deen Talk. But we want to thank everybody for tuning in today. We want to thank our guests, Brother Zakaria, Brother Asad, Sister Arifi, and Sister Tabassum for coming. And thank our wonderful staff. And you guys don't see them, but they're behind the cameras and they're making everything go. They're keeping us on point, telling me to cut. We're running out of time. So we'll see you next time on Deen Talk. I'm Joshua Saddam. Assalamu alaikum.